Well, good news everyone. I may have smoked this transmission. Okay, so the next step is in reinstalling the separator plate, and this gasket surface should be dry per shop manual. So let me dab it a little bit and try to keep it as dry as possible, but it's not possible to keep it all dry because it's upside down compared to the usual installation order. And now I do have some gasket remnants here on the sealing surfaces. This is tough. Obviously, all of it has to come out, otherwise the surfaces won't seal. And it started to rain, which is very interesting because it's Southern California in mid-September. It never rains in Southern California. I think it's pretty good. 7 KLD, so it's built in 2007. It's a 4-wheel drive 4L60E according to the broadcast code. Now start aligning the separator plate. And this should go in clean. There. Okay, now I need to find a couple of bolt holes. I'm using these short bolts just for alignment purposes. I'm taking them out once I have torqued this separator plate on. Everything clean. And this metal plate goes in how? I think I know how. This is down. Here I found a hole. Okay, this is aligned now, and I will torque it down. And I'm using a small torque wrench, which is roughly in the middle of the range, and I will put these in 11 Newton meters. 1, 2, 3. 1 to the accumulator, which has 2 bolt sizes, and this long one goes in on the driver's side. These are 8 millimeters. No, hold on. These are all 10 millimeter heads. There. There. And this one is tough. How do I reach it? I think it's good. I'm taking off these alignment bolts, and this whole thing will stay put. This requires 2 hands. I found the magic sequence, and then 1 bolt somewhere to hold it. Okay. Now, let's see if everything is installed correctly. And still clean, most importantly. Okay, now I need to look at the shop manual. So I'm gonna put the bolt type C in first. C. I mean, when you look at the shop manual or watch a YouTube video of somebody doing it and cutting it to the essential successful segments, it's very different from actually doing it, because the theory and practice, nobody tells you that you are taking a bath in transmission fluid, although you will. I didn't even put this truck on jack stands, it's just crawled under it. And although there is space, but when I'm here on my creeper, the space is a bit limited. Where's more C's? Okay, well, in this corner, behind this solenoid is another C. And it's obviously super important to use the right bolt in the right hole, because if you use a too long bolt, it goes through the case and locks up the transmission. Oh. Here is another one. I think oh, here's the C. And it was hiding behind there. And the accumulator, forward accumulator. B's. Good news, everyone. You never guess what happened. I forgot to put the check balls in, so let's start from beginning. Okay, one more try. The ball needs to be deep. It's a good amount of Vaseline. I don't know how much the transmission likes that. Gotta keep them separated. Okay. You remember from the last video that I got an extra set of these balls. I'm reusing the original balls. They are shinier. So technically you wouldn't need to put Vaseline on these, because well, I mean, we're not working upside down, but it's 100% sure that these will not stay unless there's Vaseline. There's no way they can stay put. And where to put this, right at the right positions? Well, if it looks like a check ball position, it is. Quite a lot of Vaseline, but I'm sure I'll wash off at the first start. One. 3. Okay, good. It worked out. One more time. One more time. There. That's 5. 6. 7. 8. The 10th spring. Write it down. Write it down, boys and girls. There. This one. Oh, that was 9. This is 10. 10. 11. 12. Is it 13 now? 14. 15. Son of a gun. 15 volts. And I'm not sure if this should have been done earlier. I think that was wrong order. 16. Not 1, but 16. 17. Is it 16? 18. 19. Okay. I'm gonna just check that none of these are loose. I'm gonna put the wiring harness back on. Where was this from? Oh, here. More after these messages. So that was a test. I lost one check ball somewhere during the removal, and fortunately I had these Sonnax plastic balls as spares. I put one here. I mean, it's probably a good idea to replace all of these balls with those Sonnax because they are better. They are not as heavy and they don't bang against the separator plate and wear it out. But I want to keep this as stuck as possible, so I'm not going to do that. If you're wondering why I'm wearing gloves when I'm fixing things, this is the reason. Even with the gloves, my fingers are completely busted out. Alright, I'm using a new filter because why not? I have replaced the O-ring for the filter neck recently, so I'm not going to do it now. It usually doesn't need to be replaced. I'm lubing this neck a little bit with the grippage and pushing it in like so. And as you probably guessed already, I have removed the valve body at least 3 times and reinstalled because I forget that one check valve. So it always takes at least 3 times, and that's why we call do it right the 3rd time. Okay, I got a new transmission pan with a drain plug so that today's debacle doesn't happen again, at least with this transmission. Now I would actually want this plug to be here, a little bit protected. It would matter in a car where the pan is much lower, but in my truck the transmission is super high between the frame rails, and I don't see this being a huge issue. Now, there's a new gasket, and the thing about the gasket that it's super floppy, and it is well nigh impossible to align. What I'm gonna do is put a few bolts through. This gasket has smaller holes than this floppy gasket. This is garbage. This is super hard rubber. I got it with the filter, but I had this. I think this is an Adelco gasket that I got earlier, so I'm gonna use this one and put a few bolts through, which will hold the gasket in place, and the installation will be easy as I don't know what the good metaphor would be. Okay, I'm gonna finish this one and then I'm gonna crawl under the vehicle. The only thing I'm doing tonight is just snugging this pan in place because it's dark and I have lost 2 pan bolts mysteriously. Bring it on loosely so that there's no dirt blowing into the transmission overnight. It's a little bit later. I had to take a day off, go to work. Now I'm back, and today I am going to torque it down, attach the crossmember, and fill up the transmission and start it up, see if it works. And good news, I'm wearing shoes instead of the steel-toed safety sandals. It probably should have brought a light. Okay, all these bolts will go to 12 Newton meters. That's not them first. Alright, now I'm starting to torque them. 12. One. And in my experience, this is one exception to torquing, and it might leak if I don't do it the second time around, because the seal will compress, the gasket will compress. Then I will attach the crossmember again. Click. And you probably thought that I forgot the shift cable bracket. But no way, I'm not forgetting that. Oh, come on. Okay. Done. Just gonna wipe off any oil residue. Next I'm dumping in 5 quarts of fluid. Didn't these used to be 5 quarts? Now it's 1 gallon. Oh well. Well, I have extra. 5 quarts. 5 quarts should take me to the bottom of the dipstick. In a regular oil change, transmission fluid change, 5 quarts is what you need total, but with the valve body I dumped quite a lot more on the ground, so I'm gonna start with 5. The moment of truth. Alright. Okay, batteries. It's taking all the milliamps. Well, good news everyone. I may have smoked this transmission. I didn't film the first start because it was dark in the evening. I started it up, went through the gears, it engaged, then rolled up and down the driveway a few times, and it started slipping like crazy and it wouldn't pull up the driveway anymore. So well, it was low on fluid. 5 quarts not enough for this job, so I added a quart and it engaged on the first and it pulled up. It did smoke a little bit and I could smell it, so I may have lost the first gear clutch. So I am going to now reflash the TCM with the TCC enabled calibration tables. This will also reset the adaptives at the same time, and then I'm gonna try again. I'm pulling it to a level ground and checking the fluid levels before I drive anywhere and hope for the best. Okay, I have the battery charging, key in ignition. I am using the HP tuners and I am gonna flash the TCM with the calibration file that I just made, and I'm only writing the TCM, not the ECM. Right calibration, disable the TCM, disable the ECM, do not write TCM right, and here we go. Right completed. I'm hooking up the scan tool and I'm starting up. Now I'm starting up. I still had a little charge. Let's see what we see. Pulling down. And up. Yeah. Seems to run okay, at least up and down the driveway. Okay, so now it's at code minimum. It's drained almost complete. I am taking the same 40-mile highway trip where I noticed the problem in the first place. The route is fairly high speed, with the traffic normally moving at 80 miles per hour, and there are several very long uphills. The longest hill is 5 miles with elevation change of about 400 feet. On the first test drive, the shifts feel fine and the transmission seems to be transmitting. Now, to verify that the converter is not slipping, I took the truck for a long test drive and data logged the whole trip with the VCM scanner. I am monitoring TCC slip RPM during lockup. This means the difference in the transmission input shaft and the engine RPM. Here we see the transmission has reached the operating temperature, and we see the first TCC lockup at 51 miles per hour. The PWM starts at 20%. We see the RPM drop and the slip rate is spiking. The TCM starts increasing the PWM rate until it's happy with the slip RPM of about 50. We can see the TCC releasing when I'm lifting off and the throttle is dropping to idle levels. The next TCC lockup looks very similar, and the TCM has learned to increase the PWM percentage a little to lower the slip RPM to under 40. Next, we are cruising on the highway at a steady 38% throttle. The TCM has had more time to learn, and eventually it applies a full lockup at 53% PWM rate. During the next lockup, on an uphill, the throttle is at 52% and the PWM has to go to 76% for a full lockup. This is right on target for the expected performance. Generally, the TCM seems to be quite happy when it reaches a 20 RPM slip rate. At the same place where the transmission reached 225 degrees the last time, we are staying at a cool 200 degrees. Ideally, the TCC doesn't slip at all when locked up, but the PWM style lockup in this generation of the 4L60E allows a variable but low slip rate. The PWM applies just enough pressure to maintain a compromise between pumping losses, heat generation, and fuel economy. The TCC clutch is carbon fiber based and it's designed to take a low slip rate. The older style paper-based clutch material does not last long in these new transmissions made after 2003. After some 30 miles of driving and more uphills, the engine temperature starts creeping up to 216, and the transmission follows that. The transmission cooler is integrated in the radiator and heats up the transmission fluid. We have to do something about that. The slip rate is not increasing even with the heat. Maybe we fix this thing. Returning to the surface road, we hit the steep uphill at a slow speed. The TCC starts to lock, but the slip rate stays high. The fourth gear at this speed is tough, when the truck is fully loaded and has large off-road tires. The TCC goes into an oscillation mode, which is not good news at all. The PWM goes all the way to 100%, and the slip rate is still over 80. It seems that this torque converter is worn out and can't hold at higher load. The logical move would be to replace the converter, but I am going to try software first because it's not on fire yet. I will fire up the HP tuners and fiddle with the transmission calibration tables. The TCC is controlled by a lookup table that sets the lockup and release points
across the throttle position and speed curve. Since we know now that we may have a problem at only low speeds on the fourth gear, we will focus on that. The stock table looks like this. To adapt to the tire size so that the TCC locks up at the same RPM as stock, I have increased the whole table by 6%. This is apparently not enough. I am adjusting the table so that the lockup never starts at below 45 miles per hour on the fourth gear. This means basically that on surface streets, which are quite hilly around here, we don't need to worry about slipping. This will have a theoretical impact on fuel economy, but in practice, the lockup is really rare and short-lived in city driving. I might lower the minimum speed a little if this works out fine. At any moderate throttle opening, I am raising the apply speed to around 50 to 65 miles per hour so that I can accelerate to highway speed before it locks up. The release speed in this area is much lower to avoid frequent unlock. This helps keeping the TCC locked up in uphills when opening the throttle a little, traveling at constant speed. I am not modifying the high-speed portion at all. The TCC apply and release table is somewhat experimental, but it does not need to be touched if the vehicle is stuck or if not trying to nurse a failing converter.